Irreverent, entertaining, cool. You're listening to LA Talk Radio.
You're listening to The Innervoice with Dr. Foojan Zeine, only on LA Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Dr. Foojan Zeine, and welcome to the Innervoice show. This show is about making a difference in your life so that you can create a free mind and a heart filled with love toward creating an amazing and a fulfilled life. I'll bring you the latest research in the realm of human sciences, and we'll talk to experts in their field to bring you the jewel of their knowledge and wisdom. Let me tell you a little bit about my latest book, Life Reset, The Awareness Integration Path to Creating a Life You Want. And if you want to get that book, you can go ahead to my website, foojan.com. This book is the latest psychology model that I created and presented to you in a series of exercises, which you can complete in your own home. In the book, the exercises allow you to actually reset your button. Like if you could actually have a button in your home where at any point that you didn't want what was happening inside of you, the way you were thinking and feeling and behaving and how you were reacting to the outside world, to be able to reset that button, to have the awareness and integrate all your parts so that you could actually do that. Life Reset. And if you like to consult with me, I have my offices in Irvine, Woodland Hills, Brentwood, in California, or I do a lot of consulting online. So go to foojan.com, and I love to be able to speak with you. Now, if you have any suggestions, questions that you would like me to have our expert answers and have the experts to answer your questions, please let me know, and I will definitely have those experts here. So I have an amazing guest. I'll come back and tell you a little bit about her. Fay Arjomandi, a seasoned entrepreneur and executive with the tech industry, is going to be with us. So we'll be right back. I want to tell you about a research and actually a survey that came out on October 10th, 2017 from Pew Research Center, that women are more concerned than men about gender discrimination in the tech industry. This new survey says 73% of Americans say there is a discrimination against women in tech industry. 44% of those are women, 29% are men. So obviously, women think that there is more of a discrimination than men do. But it also shows about how many women are in the tech industry. February 2017, another survey was done by LinkedIn. The survey was done by Cascade Insight, published in Brandwatch, but it was done through LinkedIn, and their findings were women represented 24% of the tech workforce, and men represented 58% of the workforce. So today we're going to actually talk to Fay Arjomandi, who is a seasoned entrepreneur and executive with international experience in North America, Europe, and Asia. Her experience spans technology, strategy, and operations. She's currently the executive chairman at H2 Wellness and advisor at StudyTrack and Mimic. Prior to this, Fay was the CEO of Nant Mobile, managing 3 mobile companies, of healthcare platform. I'm reading her bio, and to me, they're Chinese. I know she's going to explain to me what all of these are. So I should probably just talk to her and let her explain all of this, because I'm just not going to do a fair job of telling you all the wonderful things that she does. But I do need to tell you that at this time, Fay is a co-founder and the CEO of 3 startup companies, LT Technology, Technology, Mobidia, and Mimic, Fay has authored 12 patents. In 2014, she was named as one of the most influential women business leaders in Silicon Valley by San Francisco Business Week, and in 2006 received the Distinguished Business in Vancouver Top 40 Under 40 Award, presented to outstanding leaders in the chosen fields. In 2007, she was the Canadian Technology and Innovation Representative to the White House. Hi, Fay.
Hello, good afternoon.
I'm so excited as I'm reading about you, and I'm like, wow, she's a powerhouse. And believe me, everyone, she is a powerhouse.
Thank you. Nothing compared even to you and what you have accomplished in your life.
So I met you in a conference for women's leadership, and we've done the presentations in a couple of countries with the Women's Leadership Conference. And we had dinner together, and we were looking at what is it that you have really experienced and got you from who you were to where you are today. And I was reading a story about you that you said you just got into tech because you wanted to prove to someone and win a bid, right?
That's true, yes.
So tell us about it.
Yeah, this is when I was finally kind of in Montreal, Canada, and I was talking to a couple of friends, and one of them was encouraging me to actually get into technology or go to university, because after I left Iran, it's a long journey. It was 6 years out of school, and he was basically encouraging me to get into technology and go to university. And the other friend basically said, no, you should give up. Don't you even think about it. You're too late for it, and you're too old. And you've been out of school for so long. And I was just 23 years old, I think, back then, or even younger. And I couldn't accept somebody basically telling me that I can't do anything. I think that goes back to my childhood. So I said, I'll make a bet. And I went to university. I enrolled in electrical engineering program, which is a 4 years program. And I pushed through, because I think back then I felt like I'm too late and I'm old, so I have to basically work harder to make up for all the lost time. So I finished my degree in 2.5 years. I was taking seven courses, like 21 credits versus the standard 12 credits. Just pushed through, and I finished my electrical engineering degree, and that was the beginning of the journey of being part of the tech sector.
As I was reading your story, your life story, as you had sent it to me, I was imagining this free-spirited girl who has turned into this powerhouse and a free-spirited woman who is in an industry that not many women are there, obviously, as we see it, and excelling in this industry, but forming the industry to the place that your heart goes. So it's like you go into healthcare, you go into different aspects of what you like, the technology and what it is to take you. But coming back to the concept of being a woman in an industry that it's not that, let's say, open or interesting or interested up to a point in women. I think they're getting more interested at this point to women. What was your experience?
So I kind of the simple answer is that I never, in fact, even thought about it. I kind of got into it, and I've never felt like I don't have a role. I never questioned as a woman. I didn't see my gender as a deficit. It never even occurred to me that my gender would make less suitable for any undertaking. As a person, I think raised in a male-dominant environment. Anyways, I grew up with two older brothers. I was only one of the three kind of a female cousins or nephews in a group of 10 or 12. Then I went to electrical engineering. Obviously, I was only a few out of the entire mass. I was in a basketball, volleyball team, as in a school. So I never felt or realized that, there is something that women cannot do. So that's the first reaction that I've had. So I never paid attention to it. I was always I call it motivated by problem solving and driven by curiosity. Maybe it's a curse, but I see it as a blessing. So for me, it's working in tech or working in any sector. It's like falling in love. You have to fall in love with a problem, and it has to be challenging enough. And then I jump in with 2 feet, swim with sharks, and do whatever it takes to get things done. So I never considered myself as an outsider. I always felt like I am in control. It's not that a group is controlling me. But all it, and the thing is that I realized that in our sector, whenever women are asked or women are kind of suggesting to other women, it's always about, be like a man, act like a man, talk like a man, stand like a man. And this is completely against what I have done naturally in this environment. I have always kept myself who I am, and I always took a role of actually teaching men who they should be and how they should act. For instance, one of the things that always women are being told is that stop using the word we and start using the word I. Men always use the word I and take credit for everything. So you should do the same thing. In contrary, I'm still a big fan of we, and I always tell my male colleagues to stop using the word I. It's a collaboration, it's teamwork, and just you should use we. So to me, it's basically I never saw myself a separate entity or separate person, outsider, and I can only say that the women's leadership and working style is different than the men. But I think our society is trying to correct it, and by integrating more women into the tech sector, but by guiding us in a wrong direction and asking women to be like men versus actually embracing women for who they are and telling them to be who you are, because I think women are natural leaders by nature, and also learn from women's style of doing business. That's been my experience. I don't know if I answered your question.
Absolutely. A couple of things that I'm hearing, which brings up this conversation for me. One is, at first you talked about an attitude where there might be an attitude out there with an existing reality as if women are not there or not interested, or the reasons that the women are not there. But I was also hearing the attitude that you had, that you weren't falling into that attitude. You weren't subscribing to the attitude. It didn't even matter. You weren't picking it up. I remember a story about a woman who said that she was driving in a new city, and she kept seeing these people coming toward her and watching her, and she actually put the window down and asked for an address, and they kept looking at her, a couple of guys, and then gave her the address, and then looked at each other and laughed, and she raised the window and just went and found the address, and then said what streets she went through to finally get there, and everybody screamed at her like in terror and horror, "Oh my God, you passed through that neighborhood? It's amazing. amazing they didn't kill you, and usually this is what they do to people who are outsiders and go into that street. And she kept looking at it, and I'm like, I didn't even subscribe to that. I had no information of that. And actually, they were very helpful to me. So it was interesting about how sometimes when you don't subscribe to a reality, you deal with that reality as who you are versus losing yourself and dealing with somebody else's reality and having to face the concept of I'm a woman in this industry versus I am someone who wants to be in this industry. So that was the first thing I was hearing, which it really excited me. And I think it's very accurate about who we are, and our attitude guides us to interact with the reality in an instantaneous, true and real way versus an obstruct of what it is from the background gossip and conversation, which you have a reaction which is not real to the reality, but a reaction to your internal confusion. So this is one thing that I was hearing. The other one that it was interesting as I was hearing you is, why do I need to act like anybody else? And part of the conversation that showed up for me is, I think there is a beauty in acknowledging what a role of a man or a woman can be, or the flexibility of femininity and masculinity, or even the conversation of the fluidity at this point that is arising as the gender roles are. And can it be that in order to make sure that everybody has the right, obviously we cover categories and look at which categories might not be treated right because of discrimination. But beyond that, is there a way of being who I am? And it could be a mixture of my femininity and masculinity, or the traits that I bring, which can be amazing, can be nurturing, can be multitasking, can be leadership, can be many of those aspects where it can fit into the femininity or the masculinity or a role of a female and a male. And can I also honor being a woman or a man, but also honor who I am, regardless of that role?
Yeah, absolutely. I think at the end of the day, we have to be, as an individual, we have to be true to ourselves. Always keep an open mind and learn good traits, right? We're like a sponge. We're walking around and we're observing everybody's behavior and basically how they treat each other, how they deal with the problems in life, and we need to pick up the ones that kind of resonates with us. I even never tried in my work and as an engineer and also leading technology companies. Obviously, I'm always leading a lot of male-dominant organization as well. But I never even tried. Can you hear me, Foojan?
Yes. I can hear you.
Oh, okay, great. I've never even tried to kind of even draw a boundary between me and my male colleagues. I never tried to say, hey, I'm a woman, you're a man, or, or I'm here to teach you, or you're here to teach me. It's just a natural thing when you don't draw boundaries, or at least this has been my experience. And I think that I go back to this point that I think women by nature, even going back to our ancestors, we are natural leaders, because while men used to go out and hunt for bringing food in, but we are the creators of tribe, right? We nurtured, we grew, we work in farms, we basically nurtured the kids, men, boys, girls, right? We let the tribesmen men would go out and search for food and hunting and come back, and this is our. In fact, it always baffles me when anybody questions the leadership of women. Because I think this is our second nature, after all, we are the one who give birth to these men, and we are the one who take care of them until they grow to an adult and leave home, right? Mothers always had a strong role in raising kids, right? So we're diplomatically correct. We always see the future. We always want to watch out for pitfalls. We're multitasking because we're taking care of household, we're taking care of kids, we go to work, All these are important ingredients of a leadership. It's like by nature we're project managers. By nature we're about leading people. So when it comes to a role of a leader in a sector, in technology or even non-technology, let's say financial or government, all those things, I think it's completely wrong to say that, hey, as a woman you can be a leader, and I go back to the fact that it's because organization was created by men. And it's almost like we need to crack through the walls to enter those organizations. And in order for us to crack through those walls and enter, we have to become like them. In my case, I actually created my own company. I kind of, and I don't think if it was because I felt like I'm limited in organization. Even when I was working in a tech company, I didn't feel like I'm limited, and there is a limitation that doesn't allow me to grow. No, I just came up with an idea and I started a company, and I started basically creating the culture and bringing other people into it and leading them. So to some degree, and I think that's what a lot of women could do, and to break the glass ceiling, remove the glass ceiling by whole type of a thing.
I think that there's also, from a psychology perspective, I've noticed working with a lot of men executives and leaders in the companies that a lot of the childhood conversations about their relationship with their mothers show up when they are also dealing with leaders. As women, like you said, obviously every man has been groomed and trained and disciplined and nurtured by a mother, one way or another, whether they were in a best of capacity or there was a lack or negligence of it. Many times it's almost like a man's job is to get out of the mother's they're not going to be mama's boy anymore, and they have to be the individuated person who is out of the spell of the authority of the mother to become a man. And I think when you lead that and take that into corporations, you get a little bit of the innate resentment of, do I have to listen to another woman as a boss? And if you're still dealing with it from a child subconscious place, then there's going to be a lot of ego issues. But as you grow up and you get that, there's a role as a cooperative role, and there is a part that each person, as the beauty of who they are and their skills, brings. Regardless of whether they're a man or a woman, then the cooperativeness can work, and the building of the companies and leaderships, and it keeps growing and growing. I think that it's been easier for women on that level to kind of stay as the patriarchal system moved forward to be the daughter of their fathers as a dominant role, or the wife of their husband in the dominant role. and then come into the world of business and still be led by a man as a dominant role. And I think the shift, it appears that it's happening as everybody's growing up and becoming more conscious of the original roles that we had as child to parent versus adult to adult relationship and cooperation that we can have as adults come together to create corporations and lead corporations. What do you think about that?
Can you repeat the last part?
In how to have actually adults coming together, not from a role of a parent-child, but adults coming together to lead, cooperate, and together lead corporations.
Oh, absolutely. Again, I don't think. I mean, I do not believe in a hero character, right? I don't believe in this form of one person being basically the God character, I call it, right? And I think that's something that, again, going back to being hunters and gatherers, men having the role of leading and, type of thing. I think over time, somewhere in our society, I think we went wrong in terms of we started creating this superhero character. We started creating this kind of a celebrities, and celebrities from Hollywood leaked to celebrities into leaders of organizations. Celebrities leaked to who's who of Silicon Valley. And we see that this became a competition. I think I'm seeing that right now, and more and more. For instance, people are talking about the issues of Silicon Valley. How it has become male dominant, how it has become the organization. A lot of organization is now being run by narcissists without knocking anybody down, and people are seeking limelight. I mean, people are seeking, beating their chest and kind of saying, I am, and showing off with the power of razzle dazzle money, and who has more or who has done what type of a thing. I think the success, and we'll see where we are in society, by the way. We see where we are in our environmental issues, where we are with our society issues, with all the things, war that are happening. To me, it's all just as a result of the wars of ego to begin with, and I think we could only succeed as a society, as humanity, if we collaborate together, right? If we remove those call it the facade of what separates us, whether it's gender, whether it's sexual orientation, whether it's the color of the skin, or how we dress, right? If we can leave that behind, if we can stop paying attention to those and come together and collaborate, it's really about collaboration. It's not about one person winning, but it's about we together can achieve certain things, right? And that's when we succeed. I think you are absolutely right. A lot of time the clash happens because one, and by the way, there are a lot of issues that women have in working environment amongst themselves as well.
Yes.
It's not only women against men or men against women.
Yes.
There are a lot of issues that women have inside an organization that need to be talked about. And the fact that we always looking at men to fix our issues, no, we have to take control, and we have to also be able to talk about it as adults. But we should definitely not look at it like when I go to work, is that, oh, the guy that I'm working with is the husband that I have issue with, or the ex that I have issue with, or is the child, that I raised, or from the guys looking at women and say, oh, it's like my wife telling me what to do, type of a thing. Maybe I don't know. Maybe those are some of the issues that carried over to work environment, and maybe that's some of the issues that creates this conflict of women versus men in organization. And again, I want to repeat that I personally have not experienced those firsthand. But I have always been in a different situation. I've always been kind of in a leadership position that I put myself into. But given all the things that is talked about, I think yes, those are some of the elements that need to be looked at. And I personally, again, I have lot of men who've been my mentor. I have mentored a lot of women, and I have also received a lot of issues from women who I helped to grow in organizations. So that's what I'm saying. It's almost like a multi-dimensional issue, yes, versus one straight line.
Well, I get that there's a competition issue. Women compete with each other in a very different way than men compete with each other, versus the way that women and men compete against women and men. And I also think that there's an authority issue that we deal with differently. So a man attempting to receive authority from another man deals with it very differently than they do receiving authority from a woman, and vice versa. So I agree that these dynamics are there, but there's also an anthropological aspect of the dynamic, there's psychological aspect, and I think there's family issues that each person has been raised in how to handle authority, and whether that authority was pleasurable to them as they were growing up, or was the authority brutal to them, and are they going to be rebelling against it, or would they reform around it? So I think that we bring a lot of our childhood family issues and societal issues to the concept of who we are. I remember in the agency I created, which I was, we had 5 offices and we were 60 therapists. It was interesting that I had one 70-year-old man from a male-dominant culture who asked me if he could have another supervisor than me. And it was shocking to me. And I said, of course I can create that for you, but tell me what it is that it's that you want another supervisor versus me also being your clinical supervisor. And he was very, very honest. And he said, to be honest with you, I have authority issues. I'm 70 years old. At that time, I think I was 40. You're 40 years old, and I come from a culture that when you say things to me, I'm not going to be able to hear it as a supervisor. So that's what I need. And it was funny because I honored his wish, because it was important for me for him to be trained as a good therapist. There was no ego issues at that moment for me. I was the owner of the business. There was no ego issues. But it was interesting because finally his supervisor, who was also an older man, resigned, and he had to do other things. So he turned around to be, again, my intern. And it was interesting that after the second or the third supervisions that we had, he said, can I talk to you? And he said, I want to apologize because I had a whole different way that you were going to come across, and I had already judged you without knowing you. And I really had a good time in the supervision, and thank you for honoring me. And it was conversation that it opened up that a lot of what was happening had nothing to do with the reality of who we were in the room. It really had to do with what he had brought from his own culture, his own upbringing. And when situation allowed it for him to have another experience, he had first resisted it, but then he honored it, and then had good times with it and was able to receive it. So I do think the same thing you said at the beginning, when the attitude is not fixated, then we get to be with what is and have new experiences with what is, versus an already given attitude about there's a ceiling for women, there's not openness in this field for women, or where do I stop? And those are the experiences you've had where you didn't see a ceiling, you didn't experience the boundaries, you didn't subscribe to those stories. What you wanted to do is the free-spirited woman who wanted to do what you wanted to do, and then you created it and then collaborated with all the other companies and men and women who were out there to create the success that you want.
Yeah, I think actually the key is, you mentioned something about women compete different and men compete with each other, and I think actually the key is to remove the competition and to remove the self from the interest of the group, right, or the goal. It's constantly reminding ourselves that it's not about me. It is about the collective goal of what I'm trying to achieve. And once you remove self from the interest of your goal, then again, that's when the boundaries of gender, sex, skin, all that gets removed. And it's a difficult thing to do because your ego plays in, right? I mean, in your case, when your patient had told you that I don't want a female supervisor, I want a male supervisor. If you had focused on your ego, what are you talking about? And I now want to prove to you that how good a woman can be and all that, you probably wouldn't achieve the result that you have. But by focusing on the ultimate goal and objective, right, you achieved the result. And the guy woke up and realized and came to you and apologized. And that's I think that's what's important, because we have become a society of individual competition. Even when we collaborate, even when we are in an organization and we work toward a goal, it's about the individuals and who can shine better than the other. Like the system has conditioned us to focus on individuals, right? And now with all social networking and celebrity and instant fame and blah, blah, all those things, it's getting worse and worse. So we constantly have to remind ourselves on the individual level that when we are working, it's not about me, right? It's not about women or men. It's about the goal.
I agree with that. I also think that conversation is easier when you're in a space of power. Because when I see corporations at this point where they have a list of numbers of bodies that have to be cut down twice a year because we need to make up our numbers to show the stock owners about investors and all of that, then I think the level of competition and the bigger picture of I'm here for the bigger aspect of the company, it becomes harder. So I do agree that people on top can have the attitude. And I also agree that type of an attitude and context ultimately is a winner. But I'm also privy to see how the insecurity of not having a job puts you so much into a competition level because you have to compete to get to a higher degree of productivity and acknowledgement and all of that from your bosses, so that you don't fall into the last group that ultimately, regardless of who you are, if you didn't produce so much, you will be out the door anyway, because we have to cut so many percentage every October or every March because we got to show beautiful numbers. So there's this, as you said, there's a context of a culture that gets created and puts the individual, plus puts the insecurity, which leads to a competition level of the survival of the fittest. So you consistently are put into the position of competition versus the collaboration. What do you think about that?
It's true, but at the same time, I think if we had a more quantifiable way of measuring one's performance, then it's a fair and a square competition.
Say more
about that. It's not about
that.
competing over gender. It's not about competing to show off or knocking someone else down, right? It's about what was my contribution into achieving the collective goal. If they could quantify that, then yes, let's the fit win, right? And we measure the outcome, or we make decision based on that performance that is transparent. The elements of performance are transparent, and we can measure contribution. And now, again, it's almost like, I guess what I'm looking for is don't take it personal, and do a fair and a square competition. Again, if you can measure those in a quantifiable way, then I think that would be the solution.
So
what's your thought on that?
Well, what I'm hearing from you is if you look at what you're contributing, and if you're consistently up to par with the contribution of the bigger goal of the company, where employees win, the bosses win, leadership wins, stock owners win, investors win, then if we're collectively working toward that, contributing to that aspect, then the survival of the fittest, you will be consistently on the fittest level. So it's no longer about who you are, whether you're a man or a woman or whatever it is, but it is about your commitment to the way that you contribute to the goal. And the reality of reality of life is, as long as you're contributing, you're here. When you're not, your role changes, and then obviously you drop. You drop, either you choose to leave or the company allows you to go because you're not as contributing of that. So it brings the ownership and the, this is how I hear it. It brings the ownership and the responsibility to the person versus going into a victim position or a fearful position. It can put them in a powerful position that consistently allows them to grow internally and externally, focus on what is the real goal of the company as they're in, and who are they in that environment, and is that environment the best that they can offer, and it brings the best out of them. And if the answer to all of that is yes, then the contribution, the collaboration, and the result become unified.
Yeah, absolutely. You articulated quite beautifully, and that's exactly what I was trying to say. I mean, we can have another session about this corporate structure and all the politics and issues that it is, but you also touch on something that is very important, and I've always remind everybody, and that is, you have a choice. You as an individual are in control as well. Every time I hire someone, I tell them that it's not only about us hiring you or selecting you as a new employee. It's also about you selecting this company as a company that you want to work for, or selecting this project as a project that you want to work for, right? So it is a two-way street, right? They're not just ships that we have to follow certain paths, right? We can't, and I think, by the way, that's another issue that we're dealing with as a society. And you said the victim versus being in control. There are choices we make in life, and sometimes those decisions doesn't return the results, the favorable result and outcome that we're looking for, and we always have to acknowledge the decision we made, and stand up to the consequences of it, right? So we should never take it as a victim. We always like to look at others and say, oh, it wasn't my fault that this happened to me. Oh, it wasn't my fault that happened to me. But I often said, if it wasn't my fault, then, and I had nothing to do with it, and it just happened to me, then damn me, then something is wrong with me, right? So, and I deserve that to happen to me. I mean, again, I'm talking about the context of work. There are a lot of things that, I mean, in terms of abuse, in terms of harassment, in terms of all those things that happens, and we don't have a role in it. But at the end of the day, when it comes to a majority of things related to work and leading or contributing to a work organization, is not only about the company wants you to do this, but you as a person need to know that do I want to contribute here or not.
And I think that what you just said is great, where a lot of things would happen. Even we're talking about, sexual harassment and all the conversations that are happening right now about women and men and women, actually. And thank God, I am so grateful that this conversation is finally becoming so transparent, and that, people can talk about it and people can be able to take care of themselves. But I also am hearing from you saying that, sometimes we're not in control of what happens to us, and it happens, but we're certainly in control of how we deal with what happens to us. So if in some sense someone is bullying us as a leader of the company, or harassing us, or sexually harassing us, or in any other form they are, at that moment I also have a choice about might not be favorable choice. Maybe I say that I have to pay my rent and my mortgage, so I have to take on this bully because I don't have the opportunity to leave right now. I have a couple of mouths to feed. But those are the choices we're making at that moment, and then shifting from one space to another, and finally getting out as soon as I can, so that I'm not under this space of being abused, and I can move on to another space that I can be powerful. Even those choices that, because I'm putting the feeding of my children ahead of my ego at this time, I need to do that for maybe a couple of more months until if I find another job. And those choices are powerful choices that we make, and maybe we need to honor those choices also. Or sometimes the choices are that if I get bullied or harassed or sexually harassed or all of it, I am in a position that will say, no, I'm not going to take this, and this is not appropriate. Whether I choose to fight it and move along and not allow it to happen, or I'm in a position of saying, I don't want to fight, I just want to leave and take care of myself. All of those are also powerful choices. And to be able to honor those choices. So that's what I'm hearing. It's more of the conversation of experiencing power internally, and then seeing what your best capacity and capabilities are, and how to manifest that power into the workforce as you collaborate.
Yes, absolutely. And you just said one other thing that I want to touch on, and that is self-awareness. I don't think if we're not thought about understanding yourself, right? We kind of always say, follow. The society wants this. The company wants this. We need to also pay attention to who we are as an individual. What inspires me, what fuels me, what I like, what I dislike. Instead of always looking at what other wants from me, or what I should be doing, or because I am in this situation, what is it that I want? right? And based on what I want, as you said, now I'm in this situation, now let's analyze it. How far apart is this situation from who I am? And what are the course of actions that I have to take, right, in order to bring back the situation to basically align with myself?
Yes. So, one last sentence for our listeners that you want them to hear and hold from you as a gift.
Oh boy, that's a
Let's put you on the spot.
What's that?
I said, let's put you on the spot.
Yes, you should have given me a heads up on that. One last sentence. Perhaps, be true to yourself, right? Be true to yourself. Recognize yourself, recognize your ability. And always, as much as it may come across as being very quirky, but love humanity. I think more than anything else, we are at a time that we need to take responsibility with every action we take toward the betterment of humanity. It's really needed.
Thank you, Fay. Thank you, Fay Arjomandi, for being with us with a wonderful conversation. It's been a pleasure being with you, knowing you, having you in my life, and having you with my listeners. So thank you for being with us. Thank
you so much. I'm honored and humbled. Thank you. And my thing is absolutely mutual.
Thank you. Well, everyone, it's been a great pleasure to be with all of you. Thank you for listening with your heart, with your mind, and hopefully that you have received something beautiful from what Fay Arjomandi and I was experiencing and talking, as I really enjoyed it. Create a wonderful world. Create a wonderful life for yourself, a week. And just enjoy life, because it's here to enjoy. Goodbye until next week.
You're listening to The Inner Voice with Dr. Foojan Zeine, only on LA Talk Radio.